Let us pray. Loving and gracious God, we give you thanks for all the gifts that you have bestowed on us, especially for those people who have made this day possible. Energetic and committed students, generous parents and benefactors, and devoted faculty, staff, and administrators. Guide us with your wisdom and strengthen us in your service and the service of all your people. We ask this through Christ, our risen Lord, who lives and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Please be seated. As Abbot of St. John's Abbey, on behalf of the sponsoring Benedict and community, and as delegated by the Chair of the Board of Trustees, I herewith call into session this commencement convocation at the conclusion of our 157th year of conferring academic degrees granted by the university. I request Dr. Michael Hemeseth, President of St. John's University, to take charge of these exercises.
Thank you very much, Abbot John. Greetings on this beautiful day in Collegeville. If we were down on the beautiful St. John's baseball field, we might say, let's play two. It's a beautiful day today. Well, that may be a little too much for commencement. We'll just do one, but we'll do it really well. So welcome to my colleagues behind me, my faculty colleagues, to the monastic community, parents, friends, and our honored guest and parent today, Kathleen Blatz. And most importantly, welcome to the class of 2014. We gather in community to celebrate many of life's most important events: births, baptisms, marriages, deaths. Today, of course, we celebrate commencement, both an end and a beginning. It is appropriate at this time of gathering to pause, to take time out of the usual busyness of life and reflect. So as we begin this commencement in our 157th year, I ask our graduates first to look back. Think about where you were 4 years ago, or for our School of Theology graduates, maybe more years ago than that. Where were you before you came to St. John's? Think about all that you've accomplished in these past 2 or 4 years. You've completed a major. You've completed courses in the common curriculum and broadened your knowledge, become a true liberal arts student. You've engaged in all manner of activities outside the classroom, from athletics to music to student government, among many other endeavors. And you have formed many relationships with faculty, staff, monks, and friends. If we did our job well, you will become a liberally educated person, capable of both appreciating other perspectives and ideas, but also secure in your own values, which will allow you to pursue a life of meaning and service. It is also, of course, a time to look ahead, to consider all the exciting possibilities that lie ahead of you as you leave St. John's University. Many of you do know what comes next, but some of you may not. But I hope 2 things for you as you leave this place for your future. First, that you are confident that the residential liberal arts, Catholic, Benedictine education that you received and the graduate degree you received from the School of Theology has prepared you well for whatever future you choose. Second, I also hope that you will find ways to stay engaged with this community as you move through your life. You are part of this place, and this place is part of you for the rest of your lives. Finally, it is also time to give thanks. Certainly you are the individuals most responsible for your successes at St. John's, but of course none of us is the sole master of our fate. As 4 years of living in this Benedictine community reminds us, we all rely on others just as they depend on us. I'd like the class of 2014 to take a moment to recall some of those who made your successes possible. First, the monastic community, the men who lived on your dorms, on your dorm floors freshman year and beyond, the men who taught in the classrooms, and the community without whom this exceptional institution would not exist. Second, the excellent staff and faculty who taught and provided support for you throughout these 4 years. Third, the many alumni and benefactors of St. John's without whose support your education would not have been possible. Finally, and most importantly, especially today, is the support and love you have received from your family throughout your life. So would the class of 2014 please rise and join me in thanking the individuals who have made your success possible. And if you look carefully, you don't have a chance of finding your parents, but take a look anyway. Please rise and thank those that made this possible for you. Thank you very much. Now I would like to introduce Michael Rogers, who was chosen by his classmates to give the student address. Michael, if you'd come forward. Michael is a communications major from Mankato, Minnesota. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Michael Rogers to the stage.
He said something funny, so I laughed. Right. Thank you, and greetings to all the accomplished men and women here. A salute is in order to us, the class of 2014, as well as the graduates of the School of Theology. We've done things and accomplished stuff. On the last day of classes this semester, a humbling, unexpected experience happened to me. At the epicenter of existentialism, during the who am I, where am I going phase in our lives as seniors, I walked into my last collegiate course and my professor handed me a blue notebook. I'd left it behind in a course I had taken with him 3 years ago. He found it in the midst of an end-of-the-year clean sweep and put it on his desk, meaning, of course, to return it to me, but in the rush and busyness of academia, it disappeared under piles of books, papers, and other lofty objects. 2 weeks ago, he found it again and handed it to me. The notebook in question was the journal and collected works from my Intro to Creative Writing course, an exploration in writing essays, short stories, and poetry. The notebook, filled with melodrama, the occasional stick figure doodle, belonged in a fireplace to be reduced to ash and never read from again. But, of course, after opening these pages, I didn't want to burn it, nor erase its existence. I wanted to remember. Reading it had the effect of looking at an awkward high school photo, a cringeworthy but ultimately delightful glimpse at a time long ago that was dominated by braces, puberty, and angst. This process of looking back at the good, the bad, and the pubescent allows for reflection. Those pages captured my story as a freshman. So who were we then? What did we think about? What were our concerns? And what was going to happen? Many of us hadn't chosen majors yet, or been able to grasp the meaning of the abundant acronyms used by our schools. Many of us had not met each other. I reread my experiences, able to recognize what my next 3 years would bring. So-and-so weren't dating yet. We haven't left the country to study abroad. I hadn't broken the window in the entrance of Lottie. It was just a clumsy accident. No alcohol was involved or anything like that. We had not been offered jobs, bought plane tickets, leased apartments. Star Wars Episode 7 wasn't real yet. Snapchat didn't exist. And President Hemisath wasn't here. Had the notebook found its way to me any earlier, it wouldn't have caught my interest nor inspired such significant nostalgia. These things just have to happen at the right time. So what has transpired in our time here at St. John's? I've heard many classmates say that freshman year feels like only yesterday. A cliche, of course, but we might not feel like we've been here very long at all. Time is hard to measure and to understand while attempting to stay in the now. And as seniors, we are afforded the opportunity of looking back, but find it bittersweet to do so, knowing that our time here is over. Recognition of what meant most to us comes a bit too late, but never late enough to prevent our appreciation. St. John's allowed us tremendous opportunity and even greater awards if we were willing to immerse ourselves into its diverse community. Our opportunities on campus, in and outside of the classroom, expected us to present our own thoughts and ideas passionately and honestly, and seniors in our class answered that call. Collectively, we have organized and performed charity work, we have filmed documentaries on the nature of our diverse world, competed in national athletic competitions, we've rallied to save club teams and communal spaces of living, we've confronted issues of gender, sexuality, and discrimination, we've created works of theater and art, and we have done much more that impacted the student body and other communities as well. I don't need to explain the unique and prideful attachment that we have to our school, and I don't need to pass any wisdom or lessons learned onto you either. I simply need to thank you and to challenge you. A Johnny is more than a courteous door holder. Johnnies support each other's efforts to impact the world around them. You have all left a profound impact on me as an individual and on our community and the world at large. But the challenge doesn't end when we leave, and the memory and gratitude shouldn't fade either. We can continue to support each other and the home that we once shared by continuing to cherish it by fostering its continual growth. My time at St. John's is one of the greatest experiences I, of course, will ever have. I've had the good fortune of knowing some of the bravest and most honest friends I could ever have naively hoped for. I thank you for your time, I thank you for the memories, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It was superb. Now I have the honor of introducing our commencement speaker today. Kathleen A. Blatz has been a trailblazer in public service for most of her adult life. She began her legislative career at the youthful age of 24. Note that, gentlemen. 24. Get going. She won a seat in the Minnesota House of Representatives while a first-year law student at the University of Minnesota. By the time she was sworn in as Minnesota's first female Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 1998, again at the youthful age of 44, and one of the youngest Chief Justices in state history, she had served the public in a variety of posts. In addition to her 8 terms as a lawmaker, she had worked as a social worker, prosecutor, and district court judge. She has been widely lauded and honored nationally and regionally with dozens of awards for her public service achievements, most notably for the overhaul of the state's child protection system. Under her leadership, the Children's Justice Initiative was designed to get abused and neglected children out of foster care faster. It now serves as a national model. The Distinguished Service to State Government Award from the National Governors Association is one of many awards recognizing Kathleen's civic contributions. Now in private practice, she specializes in arbitration and mediation. Today also marks a special day for Chief Justice Blatz on a personal note. Her son, Max Berkelman, is a member of today's graduating class of 2014. Kathleen, would you please come forward? The citation honoring Kathleen Blatz reads as follows. It has been said that a great society is measured by the way it treats its most vulnerable citizens. Kathleen Blatz, you have dedicated your life to serving the citizens of Minnesota, especially the least visible and most vulnerable among us. Throughout your distinguished career as a social worker, legislator, and ultimately as Chief Justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court, you have made the protection of children a priority, and you have been a forceful and effective advocate for human rights. You recognize the court's impact on the lives of children and families. Under your leadership, the Children's Justice Initiative was designed to move abused and neglected children out of the foster care system more quickly. That initiative now serves as a national model and is part of our lasting legacy to protect children through judicial authority. You are widely respected for your willingness to help others. You are a strong mentor for young attorneys and those interested in serving in the judiciary. Your thoughtful leadership exemplifies the way in which individuals can make a positive difference through public service. You recognize the values of diverse viewpoints. Your energetic, positive attitude. You have worked across the political spectrum to find common ground and common interests that advance the greater good. In a world too often beset with conflict, you understand that respect for others is an indispensable remedy. You demonstrate that respect in the way you conduct your life with integrity, compassion, and commitment. You work with others to promote understanding among all people. In recognition of your dedication and lifelong service to the people of the state of Minnesota, St. John's University recognizes you with gratitude and confers upon you, Kathleen A. Blatz, the Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, on this 18th day of May, 2014. Kathleen Blatz. So now we'll give her some new clothing, very stylish robe and hood. And citation.
Thank you so much, President Hemeseth. Mr. President, Abbott Clausen, and members of the monastic community, trustees, faculty, graduates, of course, families, and friends. And I want to again say, importantly, the class of 2014. It is a great honor to be here to celebrate your graduation. It is a happy day, for it is one of life's great accomplishments to successfully complete your college education. And it is a gift to receive that education from such a fine and unique institution as St. John's. Anyone fortunate enough to be associated with St. John's knows that it is a special place. But this view is not limited to those who pass through here, but it is a view shared by many of us living outside Collegeville. And it is a view that I have held for most of my life. I have always felt connected to this place. My personal connection is rooted in my family. My father, Jerome Blatz, was born into a devout Catholic family. He was one of 8 children. His 2 and only brothers both became priests, and his 2 oldest siblings became Benedictine nuns, Sister Imogen and Sister Mildred Ann, and they spent the majority of their life at St. Benedict's. During that time, early on in that time, they were joined by their youngest sister, my Aunt Teresa, who also graduated from St. Benedict's. And today, largely because of the influence of my aunts, the Blatz extended family is populated with many, many graduates of St. John's and St. Ben's, including 5 cousins who are currently students at both schools. Yet while I am proud of my personal connection, I do not believe my respect for St. John's University is rooted in family bias or parochialism. It is a respect that has grown out of many, many encounters that I have had with graduates of this fine institution. It is a respect that has been earned by those of you who are alumni or otherwise affiliated with St. John's. And it is because of the respect I hold for St. John's that I was so pleased when my son Maxwell applied to different schools, visited different schools, and finally decided that St. John's had what he was looking for. Shortly after Max made his decision to go to St. John's, a family friend, Dr. Glenn Nelson, asked me, "Where's Max going to college?" I replied, "St. John's," and his face immediately lit up. He told me what a great choice Max had made and went on to tell me why he thought it was such a great university. To fully understand his perspective, you need to know a little bit about Dr. Nelson. Dr. Nelson went to Harvard University undergrad, and then he went on to medical school to become a surgeon. Later, he went on and had to become a very accomplished businessman, a medical leader, and a dedicated philanthropist. His broad experiences include stints as CEO of Park Nicollet Medical Center, Senior Vice President at Medtronic. Let it suffice to say, he is a pillar of our state. Interestingly, Dr. Nelson is not a Catholic, but has served as a trustee, or regent back then, of St. John's. Dr. Nelson told me that he was deeply impressed by the St. John's community. He shared that over the many years when he hired for positions, be it in the medical field, in business, or in philanthropy, he would receive stacks of applications. And when he went through them, he would pull out all the graduates of St. John's and to give them a second look. When I asked him why, he told me that it was his view that St. John's University offered an extra dimension of a community culture that was bled into the students. He believed, after spending 4 years at St. John's, the graduates were imbued with a certain spirit that gave them a deeper understanding of humanity and ethics. a quality that Dr. Nelson believed was often more important in life than intellect. Dr. Nelson's respect for St. John's was not born out of a family connection or religious affiliation. No, it was a respect and is a respect that is based on his personal interaction with many members of the St. John's community. For it is in these interactions that we on the outside observe firsthand how the Benedictine values are lived out. I share these observations from Dr. Nelson with you today for two reasons. First, to recognize that you, graduates, are about to leave this very supportive St. John's community and fully return to the outside world. That transition poses challenges. And second, I share his observations with you to challenge you, the class of 2014, to ask yourself, what does it mean to be a graduate of St. John's? How are you going to live a life that reflects the Benedictine values? First, let's talk about the transition. A recent cartoon in the Star Tribune quipped, "First you get the college degree, and then you get the third degree." You know what the third degree sounds like. What are you going to do after graduation? Do you have a job? Where are you going to live? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? For some of you, you know the answers, at least some of them. For many of you, the answers are yet to come. It is true that a lot is expected of you. And we live in uncertain times. It's tough in the arena. 2014 looks a lot different than the year that I and many of your parents entered into the job market. That's a fact. For many of you, this time of uncertainty can be very unsettling. As a student, you figured out what to major in, who your friends were, what your professors expected of you, and how to fool your RAs. When you look ahead, all that certainty vanishes. It is the unknown. My advice to you, embrace it. A year ago, I came across a writing by an unknown author who described this time of transition brilliantly. The writing was entitled "The Flying Trapeze." The author likened the transition zone between the known and the unknown as the letting go space between letting go of one trapeze in order to grab hold of the next one. The author wrote, "Most of the time, I'm hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar of the moment." For you, St. John's. "It carries me along, and I have the feeling that I'm in control of my life. But in my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I must release the grip on the present, well-known bar to move to the new one. I have noticed that in our culture, this transition zone is looked upon as a nothing, a no place between places. Surely the old trapeze bar was real, and that new one coming towards me, I hope that's real too. But the void in between, that's a scary, confusing nowhere that must be gotten through as fast and as unconsciously as possible. What a waste. I have a sneaking suspicion that the transition zone is the only real thing, and that the bars are illusions we dream up to avoid where the real change, the real growth occurs for us. Whether or not my hunch is true, it remains that the transition zones in our lives are incredibly rich places. They should be honored, even savored. Even with all the pain and fear and feelings of being out of control that can accompany transitions, they are still the most alive, the most growth-filled, most passionate, most expansive moments in our lives. The author concludes that we need to give ourselves permission to hang out in the transition between trapeze bars, to allow ourselves to dwell in the only place that change really happens. While it can be terrifying, it can also be enlightening. Hurtling through the void, we just may learn how to fly. In my view, the author was right. Embrace this time of transition between St. John's and the what's next. In the end, the space between the trapeze bars will be as much a part of your life story as what you do when you are holding on. Which brings me to my second point. What will your being a Johnny say about you? How will your life honor the values that you were embedded with during your 4 years here? In answering that question, remember that it is not so much what you do with your life, but how you do it. When I was Chief Justice, I spoke to many, many groups of students and many law students. I was asked time and time again, what type of law practice should they practice? Should they become prosecutors or defense attorneys, legal aid? What did I think about corporate law or environmental law? My response was always the same. It is not what area of law you practice in, but how you practice law that matters. It is in the how that tells the world what a lawyer values and what kind of person he or she is. And the same is true for you. It is not what specific vocation you pursue or job that you get that will matter the most. It is how you as an individual, St. John's graduate, decides to live your life that will reflect what you value. Simply being a St. John's graduate is not itself sufficient. The reputation of St. John's and the respect that many others hold for you will be based on how you live your life. So despite all of our questions, it's not what you do or where you do it that will matter in the end. And always remember that even though life ahead can be uncertain, you get to decide the most important part of your future, the how. But for now, on this graduation day, we celebrate how far all of you have come. You should be very proud of what you have accomplished. I know that your parents and families are. And let's be honest, some of your family members may even be relieved. I know that Max's 2 older brothers would fall into that category. While his father and I have always thought Max was a wonderful son, and he is, his older brothers have not always agreed. One day, some years ago, thank goodness, when I came home from work, I was greeted at the door by, I have 3 sons, by my 2 older sons. Hunter, the oldest, was then 12, and Carter was 10. And they were very, very upset with their 6-year-old brother. And I listened to their story as a good judge would, and then wanted to get the other side from the sitter. And she told me that, you know, the older brothers had been basically just terrorizing him, Max, all day, but Max had pulled a butter knife on them. Now, given that it was a knife, a butter knife, I decided that Max needed to be punished regardless of what his older brothers had done to him. I wanted to draw a line in the sand about weapons in the house. So I thought, what could I do? So I meted out the most severe punishment that really you could ever do in my household. I thought about it. And so I told Max, you are grounded from WWE and all fake wrestling for 2 weeks on TV. Now, with the maturity that I have now as a parent, that might have something to do with the butter knife that I was letting him watch it in the first place. But anyway, it was a very severe punishment, trust me. And Max was sobbing. He was devastated. But his older brothers thought it was just forget it. What a weak punishment. They went storming out of the room. And my middle son, Carter, he loves to write about his feelings and everything. And so he went off and he returned in about a half hour and he brought me a letter. It's real, it's true, this is a true story. And I will read it to you. Mom, there's no dears or loves in this, it's just straight. It was just, Mom, Max has become a big brat. And you should either punish him, and then he puts in parentheses, give him a real punishment. Visit a psychiatrist. Or let him be this way. Right now, the way you're punishing him is pathetic. Or kind of easygoing. I'd put him in his room for a night to let him think of what he's done. Ground him from wrestling, and if it happens again, punish him more severe. Remember, this is just opinion and suggestions, so Max isn't in prison for a decade when he gets older. Then he underlines, the choice is yours completely. Carter. So we are grateful, Maxwell, that you are not in prison today, and that you are here, and we are all celebrating, and I join all the parents, family members, and everybody on stage behind me to celebrate this wonderful day. And we are so grateful to St. John's for all that it has offered and all that it has done for all of you. I congratulate each and every one of you, and I wish you the best as you let go of the St. John's Trapeze Bar and fly to the next bar. And I am not talking about sales or the law. Enjoy the transition, live out your values that support the greater good, and never forget that you are a part of a community that loves you and celebrates you. Congratulations, class of 2014.
Will the candidates for the degrees of Master of Divinity, Master of Arts, and Master of Theology please rise? President Hemaseth, I present the candidates for the degrees of Master of Divinity, Master of Arts, and Master of Theology who have been approved by the faculty of the university.
Thank you, Joe. By virtue of the authority committed to me, I confer upon you the degrees of Master of Divinity, Master of Arts, or Master of Theology, which have been approved by the faculty of the university and for which you have been recommended. Dr. William Cahoy, Dean of the School of Theology and Seminary, will ask the candidates to come forward.
Brother Bradley Jenigas receives the degree of Master of Divinity. Brother Bradley is a member of the Order of St. Benedict from Collegeville, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Divinity is conferred upon Zachary Alban Mosek from Toledo, Ohio. The degree of Master of Divinity is conferred upon Rebecca Spanier from St. Cloud, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Divinity is conferred upon Therese Marie Tomanik from Duluth, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Arts in Liturgical Music is conferred upon Carlo Rodrigo Argati from Burbank, California. The degree of Master of Arts in Theology with a concentration in Systematics is conferred upon Justin Campbell from Baltimore, Maryland. The degree of Master of Arts in Theology with a concentration in Systematics is conferred upon Carlton Anthony Chase from Brentwood, Tennessee. The degree of Master of Arts in Theology with a concentration in Systematics and Master of Arts in Liturgical Studies is conferred upon Nathan Peter Chase from Murphy, Texas. The degree of Master of Arts in Liturgical Music is conferred upon Timothy Daly Dusenberry from Arlington, Virginia. The degree of Master of Arts in Liturgical Music is conferred upon Patricia Jasmine Ellis from Nassau, the Bahamas. The degree of Master of Arts in Liturgical Music is conferred upon Catherine Irene Florian from Washington, Pennsylvania. The degree of Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry is conferred upon Sister Shauna Foley of the Sisters of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary from Fargo, North Dakota. The degree of Master of Arts in Liturgical Music is conferred upon Michaela Marie Free from Omaha, Nebraska. The degree of Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry is conferred upon Marian Juliana Gondringer from Albany, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry is conferred upon Nicole Dawn Hessig from New York Mills, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry is conferred upon Father Shuang Hao Liu from Jiaotong City, Yunnan Province, China. The degree of Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry is conferred upon Kathy M. Robach from Cold Spring, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Arts in Pastoral Ministry is conferred upon John Paul Schmidt from Wausau, Wisconsin. The degree of Master of Theology is conferred upon Benjamin L. Rush from Cairnbrook, Pennsylvania. The degree of Master of Theology is conferred upon John C. Solheid from Alexandria, Minnesota. The degree of Master of Theology is conferred upon Wesley Sudermeister from Columbus, Ohio. Please join me in giving these graduates a round of applause.
Will the candidates for the degrees Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science please rise? President Hemaseth, I present to you the candidates for the degrees of Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science, who have been approved by the faculty of the University and the College of St. Benedict.
By virtue of the authority committed to me, I confer upon you the degrees of Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science, which have been approved by the faculty of the University and the College of St. Benedict, and for which you have been recommended. Vice Provost Joe Desjardins will ask the candidates to come forward.
Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts with honors, egregia cum laude, and may I ask the audience, please wait and hold applause until all the candidates have received their degree. Thank you. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts with honors, egregia cum laude, Spencer Timothy Free, Alexander Thomas Reed, Joseph Bradley Wick. Kevin Joseph Windhauser. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts with Honors, summa cum laude, Mark David Gracie. Aaron Joseph Gunnigsman. Alex Michael Hansen. Preston Gerald Hardy. Robert Lars Hedberg. Joseph William Hodap. Andrew Martin Havel. Joseph Lee Kinnan. Adam Gregory Kunkel. Ryan Alexander McMillan. Taylor Randall Ramler. Alexander William Van Lowe. Lee Shan Yin. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts with Honors, magna cum laude, Forrest Glenn Anderson. Kevin Patrick Battis. Jordan Waite Burns. Thomas John Broussard. Daniel Jerome Cahill. Joseph Daniel Duher. Benjamin Lee Evanson. Alexander Henry Forster. Harrison John Gertis. Michael James Hyostek. Aaron Thane Hayworth. Jacob Lee Helmer. Daniel Lee Himmerick. John Patrick Height. Connor William Klausing. James Joseph McLean. Patrick John Miles. Andrew John Mueller. Taylor James Nauman. Benjamin Robert Precourt. Jacob Ronald Saffett. Maxwell Scott Salerno. Trevin N. Saunders. Adam Joel Spurl. Michael Lee Turhar. Adam Michael Tucker. Brian Richard Vanderheiden. Jacob Jared Wolf. Ryan Michael Zachick. Matthew Thomas Zimmich. Michael John Zimmer. Andrew William Zern. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts with Honors Cum Laude, Joseph Timothy Balder. Christopher David Baranek. Jared William Berg. Cody Devin Carlson. Austin Joseph Egan. Thomas Michael Fadden III. Anthony John Gozich. Dylan Edwin Graves. Kyle Richard Gronbeck. Joseph William Hall. Ilya Michael Hoffert. Chase Alexander Keimig. Joseph William Lampy. Daniel Hartung Larson. Alexander Scott Ludke. William Andrew Mattis. Ryan Michael Peters. Sean Todd Pickthorn. Michael Joseph Richter. Connor James Rust. Daniel Mark Sears. Timothy William Solfest. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science with Honors, Cum Laude, Cameron Keith Atkinson. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Science, Tyler James Gregerson. Justin Robin Wan. Patrick Phong Nguyen. Eric Allen Rimmer. Joshua Philip Santos. Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Riyadh Bismarck Abu Smail. Seifu Bakale Adam. Brian Santiago Aguilar. Jack Francis Algar. Matthew Mark Ulmer. Brett Lawrence Anderson. Matthew Philip Anderson. Tyler James Anderson. Tyler Michael Anderson. Daniel Maurer Anfinson. Paran Nelson Armley. Miles Patrick Damian Armitage. Christopher James Armstrong. Ryan Patrick Arney. Christopher John Bach. Adam Paul Bachmeyer. Timothy John Babenroth. John William Bailey. Trevor Joseph Barth. Anthony Michael Bauer. Kyle Christopher Bauer. Alexander John Baxa. Jared Tyler Baxa. Timothy James Bedeau. Blake Patrick Bellin. Michael Christopher Bergstrom. Maxwell Blatz Berkelman. Benjamin James Berthium. Alexander Thomas Besky. Nihal Satish Bakhtar. Dylan Anthony Beal. Brent William Bitson. Matthew Michael Blaine. Nathan Timothy Blenker. Kyle Jeffrey Bohm. Patrick Thomas Bonner. Aaron Joseph Braskett. Christopher John Braun. Adam Jeffrey Brentonson. Thomas William Broback. Benjamin Coleman Bruce. Henry Allen Brown. Connor Frederick Bruns. Ryan Lee Brutger. Patrick Michael Bueller. Patrick Allen Butcher. Preston Jacob Anderson Capps. Hunter Thomas Carico. Matthew David Carson. Alexander Theodore Celeste. Joseph Rand Charlesworth. Justin Nicholas Clavel. Curtis Peter Klinsman. Tyler Robert Klinsman. Michael Christopher Coburn. Peter Nicholas Coburn. Michael Raymond Cola. Carl Alexander Koloski. Tyler James Cornwell. David Ryan Crato. Taylor John Dammerman. Zachary Allen Danielson. On Doc Doe. Huang Xuan Do. Lucas Joseph DeBruzzi. Luke Joseph D'Souza. Dominic Robert Devine. Nicholas Paul DeWitt. Travis Charles DeWitt. Joseph John Dick. Scott Lewis Dick. Matthew Richard Dockendorf. Philip Michael Dolan. Nicholas Kane Donovan. Brandon Alexander Dorsey. John Raymond Doobie. John Fitzgerald Duda. Charles Clement Dudek. Taylor Kent Dunbar. Ryan Gerald Dwyer. Jesse Stephen Dykoff. Lucas Ronald Egerich. Zachary Henry Eink. Jack Franz Elsness. Charles John Enders. Nathan Gregory Engel. Alex Thomas Engelsjerd. Eric Carl Engelsjerd. Philip Alfred Kenneth English. Joshua Allen Erickson. Jacob Daniel Essler. Kevin Anthony Etten. Ryan Michael Finneyfrock. Stuart Alexander Fogarty. Patrick John Foley. Perry Livingston Forbes, Jr. Samuel Earl Forster. Michael Paul Freeby. John Brock Friesen. Hanlin Fu. Derek James Gobb. Samuel Robert Godola. Andrew Henry Gajewski. Ryan Lee Geiger. Nathan Lawrence Geislinger. Julius Alexander Gurnis. Jack Michael Gizzoni. Dane Russell Gillespie. Connor Scott Jerv. Robert Paul Getsky. Travis David Goman. Andrew Mark Good. Adam David Gooley. Thomas Harry Gragis. Kyle Blake Grant. Roger James Gregory. Connor Philip Griffin. Cody John Groon. Joshua Kevin Gross. Joshua Daniel Groth. Evan Timothy Greenis. Dylan Lang Hager. Jordan Christopher Haggart. Jacob Andrew Hall. Patrick Kevin Hayden. Scott Andrew Hegg. Lucas Christian Hine. Mark Stephen Philippi Heinen. Charles William Heitner. Ethan Lewis Hellier. Samuel Augustine Henches. Joel Christopher Hergott. Calvin Michael Harold. Joseph Earl Hessing. Dana Ray Hicks. Kevin Roy Higgins. Dwight Christopher Higgs. Jeremy Michael Hill. Jared Leon Hines. Samuel Philip Hines. Min Bin Ho. Justin Joel Hochsprung. Alexander Mauricio Hoyseth. Kevin Edward Hoisington. Nicholas Patrick Hollerman. Samuel Malcolm Hollis. Jack Howard Holman. Nathan Daniel Holthouse. Yue Xin Huang. Michael Timothy Humbert. Dakota James Huseth. Nathan James Ilias. Adam Thomas Ironside. Stephen Gregory Jacobs. Leif Jerome Carlton Jacobson. John Thomas Jager. Alexander Lloyd Janku. Luke Francis Januszka. Luke Edward Januszewski. Jacob William Jetran. Kevin John Jennison. Shane Bennett Jensen. Kevin Michael Jerick. Jordan Nicoline Jadzio. Jason Thomas Johnson. Jesse Nicholas Johnson. Joseph Scott Johnson. Michael David Johnson. Trent Michael Johnson. William Christopher Johnson. Ryan David Jones. Stephen Douglas Molnar Katz. Wesley Philip Kemper. Jeremy David Klein. Daniel Paul Napper. Zachary Stephen Knight. Thomas Edward Kohler. Calvin Paul Moylan Cope. Wade Gregory Coles. Joseph Robert Koopmeiners. Joshua Michael Kozlowski. Benjamin Robert Krebsbach. Patrick John Kunkel. John Herman Kurth III. Ethan Michael Kvitt. Thomas Patrick Lambert. Anders Tate Langley. Connor Glenn Lenz. Daniel Keith Larson. Luke Wayne Larson. Joseph John Lowy. Garrett Patrick Lee. Levi Lee. Michael Tyler Lee. Mark Decker Linchevsky. Mark Anthony Leon Guerrero. Nicholas Dylan Lilly. Joshua Michael Lindquist. Andrew Martin Long. Benjamin Charles Lortz. Nolan Albert Lortz. Per Jacob Lundmark. Cody James Lynch. Mitchell J. Lytle. Samuel John Mahold. John Tyler Malone. Kevin Donald Markgraf. Timothy David Marcoux. Stephen Gerald Marquette. David John Marshall. Landon Cade Martinez. Peter Frank Martinez. Seth William Marks. John Michael Max. Austin Dale McCoy. Dylan Michael McFarland. Kevin John McKenzie. Patrick Michael Means. Lucas Mark Menden. Miguel D. Mendoza, Jacob Andrew Meyer, Nicholas Gerald Meyer, Zachary Terrence Meyer, Andrew Stephen Micas, Evan Wallace Miller, Joseph Allen Miller, Joseph William Miller, Justin Alexander Miller, Mark Thomas Manet, Fabricio Jose Moncada Ruiz, Ryan Philip Mord, William Daniel Moss, Tu Choa Moa, Colin John Moynihan, Ethan James Mustonen, Luke Jacob Meiskins, James Michael Nettermeyer, Kirubel Falake Nagash, Joseph Elihu Nelson, Dewey Huang Nguyen, Long Du Nguyen, Alex Stephen Nicholas, Christopher Gerhardt Nikolek, Michael Robert Nimmo, Patrick Henry Nosen, Philip James Nowak, Michael Patrick O'Leary, Jacob Scott Osterich, Elliot Philip Olson, Jacob Theodore Orth, Reed Eric Osell, Justin Nicholas Ostendorf, Drake Lawrence Oosterhout, Kyle Lee Ostrowski, Jacob Daniel Otterson, Aaron Robert Patternis, John James Palmisano, Colin Patrick Pampook, Chung Pao Pang, Nicholas James Pauley, Alexander Leonard Peck, Edward William Peichel, Matthew Allen Pendleton, Joseph Andrew Pesch, Michael David Peters, Charles Stephen Peterson, Gerald James Pittman, Brandon George Plant, Paul Richard Plumbon, John Patrick Plunkett, Jason Mankey Porton, Nicholas Robert Pruce, Song San Chiao, John David Quinby, Connell Dennis Quinn, David Leo Rademacher, Charles Daniel Raker, Sean Daniel Reibel, Lucas Mitchell Ramsey, Axel Ramsgaard, Maxwell Baimler Rathmanner, Samuel John Raffs, Yasis Ravika Ratanaka, John Nicholas Regan, Isaiah Lawrence Reavers, Jeffrey David Reynolds, Jonathan Theodore Travis Rhodes, Ricky Joseph Richards, Kirby Charles Riggleman, James Michael Rohn, Alexander Davis Robbins, Michael Edward Rogers, Richard William Rollick, Tyler Andrew Rolls, Devin Elliott Roll, Thomas Patrick Rongich, Michael Thomas Rubel, Jared Robert Ruland, Colin Hunter Ryan, Joseph Patrick Rydeen, James Robert Saintley, Michael Eric Sandiger, Eric Allen Sandstead, John Joseph Skopaniak, Brandon Anthony Schaust, Matthew Charles Sherber, Daniel Thomas Schmidt, Michael Vincent Schoenberg, Paul Richard Schenecker, Mitchell Ray Schulte, Thomas Daniel Schultz, Benjamin Michael Schwamberger, Duncan Timothy Secor, Brandon Mitchell Sapelt, Dominic John Shaw, Christopher Gary Shea, Joseph James Silacek, Alexander Joseph Smishek, Jack Francis Summers, Andrew Stephen Spear, Matthew John Spreeder, Justin Edward Springer, Jordan Michael Stanek, William MacArthur Starbird, Matthew Joseph Stegman, Adam Thomas Steinbach, Mark Thomas Steingraber Jr., David Richard Hegman Stemper, Robert Matthew Stocker, John Raymond Subialka, Robert John Sybrant, Gregory Matthew Thielen, Joseph Thomas Thompson, Justin Michael Thompson, Matthew Francis Thompson, Mitchell Quinn Thompson, Patrick Andrew Thornton, Kyle James Thorstad, Sean Michael Tillman, Ryan Curtis Tillotson, Dominic Joseph Todora, Connor James Triggs, Clayton James Truler, Alexander Vincent Trujillo, Fung Fan Trong, Christopher Wilford Tunbo, Noah Daniel Van Neville, Caleb Joseph Vanderweg, Jerv Vang, Casey Harrison Vagness, Brian William Vargason, William Robert Versen, Mitchell Robert Voigt, Cody Edward Vall, Martin Min Vu, Jordan Thomas Wachholtz, Lucas Joseph Wald, Matthew Ian Ward, Andrew Scott Warzeka, Daniel Joseph Wattenhofer, Jacob Thomas Weber, Paul Vincent Weber IV, Joseph William Welly, Benjamin Joseph Wenker, Travis William Whiting, Jace Andrew Wiechek, Alex Dean Wigman, Anthony Thomas Winnicky, Darrell Damaris Williams, Jr., Kellen Rector Witchin, James Richard Wittenborg, Ryan Jared Wojciechowski, Patrick Stephen Wold, Sui Wei Xiong, Chang Yang, Ho Pan Young. Silvio Lidio Zabala. J. William Zachman. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a round of applause for the class of 2014.
Congratulations to the class of 2014. Now the graduating members of the Men's Chorus and the Chamber Choir will sing the Alma Mater and Gaudius e-Guitar in arrangements by Dr. Axel Timer. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Axel. I should just note that we honored Axel Timer about a week ago for 45 years of service at St. John's University. And I should note that wasn't a retirement party, that was just 45 years and counting. A recent Gallup poll of college graduates tried to assess what determined their success once they left their alma maters. They were looking at issues a little broader than economic success, though as an economist, of course, I don't mind that kind of success either. But they were focusing on professional engagement and thriving in the well-being in life more generally of people who graduated from college over the last decades. And interestingly, what they found was that it didn't matter what school you went to. There was no particular correlation between the kind of school you went to and your thriving after you graduated. But what this study found was that students that made one close connection with a faculty member or coach or mentor of some kind during their time in college were more likely to be thriving and professionally engaged after they graduated. I deeply hope that all of you gentlemen in front of me found that one connection, or at St. John's and St. Ben's, more likely 4 or 5 connections, because of course you get to count Father Don automatically. But the faculty behind me are the ones that make those connections for most of you. They're the ones that reach out and mentor you and find ways to connect with you that are meaningful both while you're here as a student, but will continue to be meaningful for many of you years and years after you graduate from St. John's. So I'd like to take this time to recognize and thank the faculty of St. John's University and the College of St. Benedict for the wisdom, dedication, and generosity that they have provided to you over the past 4 years. Before we thank them in general, I also want to note that we have 9 great professors that are retiring this year after significant and distinguished teaching careers at St. John's and St. Ben's. So I just want to name them individually, and we'll thank them all at the end. Professor Annette Atkins in the History Department is retiring this year. In addition, Dave Bennett's in the History Department retiring, 2 giants in that department. Margaret Cook in the Language and Cultures Department is retiring this year. Larry Davis in Biology is stepping down. Robert Dumonceau in Mathematics, after 51 years, 51 years, is stepping down. Sister Ephraim Hollerman in Theology and Sister Mary Reuter in Theology are also retiring. Dale White in the Music Department is stepping down, and Gladys White in Hispanic Studies. Sorry, I stepped on that one. Please give all these faculty a round of applause for all they've done for us. Abbot John, if you'd offer a final blessing, please.
Please stand. A little slow on the uptake there. I'd ask the graduates if you would please bow your heads and pray for God's blessing. And I'd ask all parents, friends, relatives, faculty, staff, and administration, and honored guests, if you're comfortable with it, okay? Please extend your hands in blessing with me for our graduates. And this is a heavy-duty 3-part blessing, so give me a strong amen to each part, okay? May the Holy Spirit, the Consoler, bless you in every way and strengthen you for the journey ahead. Amen. May you always walk in God's ways, knowing what is right and good, having the grace and the courage to carry it out. May God enrich you with the gifts of faith, hope, and love, so that what you do in this life brings you to the happiness of everlasting life. Amen. May Almighty God bless you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Please stand for the final hymn which is in your program.